Rowan called it 2. 13. I sat up in bed and knocked my glass of water off the nightstand. The spill spread across the crossword book, the rent receipt, and a photo of us from senior year. We were back to back in that picture, green eyes daring the camera to tell us apart. Riley, she said, I need you to sound awake and calm. I muttered. Calm is still loading. She let out a laugh that sounded frayed at the edges. You remember how you always said you would cover me if I ever messed up? I remember saying a lot of things I regret. Well, she said. Voice tight. I need you to be me tomorrow. The ceiling fan hummed like a witness. Be you. I repeated, as in pretend to be you. One day, she said. Maybe 2? You can keep doing this, I said. You can throw a Riley-shaped blanket over fires you start. This is not a fire. She whispered. It is an opportunity. That is what wildfires call themselves on LinkedIn, I said. What is going on? She hesitated long enough to make a story out of silence. Please, she said. Brightwave Media. Final interview. Communications director. They want a leader with polish. You have polish, I said. Somewhere under the glitter. I can show up, she said. Not tomorrow. If done. Why can't you show up? Her breath hitched. I will explain when I can. Rowan had always been the first to jump and the last to plan the landing. We were born 7 minutes apart in a Portland hospital on a rainy Friday. She learned to run with her shoelaces untied. I learned to not mind twice. She charmed our teachers and forgot her homework. I turned in mine early and corrected the answer key once. Our mother said we were 2 halves of a coin. Spinning. Sometimes we landed heads. Sometimes tails. Sometimes we rolled under the couch and needed a flashlight. Okay, I said into the dark. I will do the interview. But you owe me truth. I know. She breathed. You are saving my life. I did not sleep. Before dawn, I pulled Rowan's navy blazer from my closet. She had mailed it to me last Christmas with a note that said, For when you remember you are allowed to be loud. I parted my hair down the middle and practiced Rowan's laugh. I practiced the way she tilted her head when she listened and the way she used her hands when she cared. By the time I walked into Brightwave's 12th floor lobby, I felt like an understudy who had learned the lines in a hurricane. Still, I knew the work. Every crisis memo I would drafted at my accounting firm, every board presentation I would salvaged, lived in my bones. It just did not live under Rowan's name until now. 3 executives waited in a glass conference room with a view of the Chicago River. Rowan said, Glad you made it. Wouldn't he miss it? I said, sliding into Rowan's posture. We talked about brand risk and truth in messaging. We talked about how to say sorry in public without sounding like a politician or a robot. When they asked about my weakness, I told them I overprepared and then underlined how useful it became at 4 p. On a Friday when the internet melted, they nodded like we had seen the same apocalypse. When I stepped into the elevator afterward, my hands shook with leftover adrenaline. I had worn Rowan's face and used my voice and the building did not collapse. Rowan called that night, buzzing like she had a beehive in her chest. How did it go? I think you got the job, I said. She squealed so loudly I held the phone away. You are a miracle worker. Now you, I said. Tell me why I did it. She went quiet. She said. My mouth went dry. For what? She said. It was overnight. My lawyer says it will be fine. If Brightwave finds out, dead. Rowan, I said. You can drive through your problems. I know. She whispered. Please keep being me until it is official. The offer came 2 weeks later. Brightwave's her rep called with cheerleader energy and benefits bullet points. Welcome to Brightwave. Rowan? Thank you, I said. Because there are times when honesty and timing refuse to date. I told myself it was temporary. Sign a few forms. Do a Zooms. Keep the boat steady until Rowan could climb aboard. But boats drift when no one draws a map. Days turned into weeks. My mornings belonged to spreadsheets and audits. My lunch hours and evenings belonged to brand decks and strategy calls. My inbox became 2 inboxes. My life became 2 lives. Rowan texted instructions like stage directions. Use exclamation points with Celeste. Don't say pivot around Jason. Say iterate. Instead. Everyone loves the word iterate. She made me list 3 fun facts for the team happy hour and then vetoed 2 of them. No one once solved a logic puzzle on a bus. To Riley? Yes to cooked a Thanksgiving turkey on a camping stove. Very Rowan. I practiced the smile that looked like a sparkler caught mid-sizzle. I learned the names on the office seating chart by whispering them into the mirror. Right wave ran glossy and fast. The kitchen had kombucha taps and cereal and glass dispensers. The CO wore hoodies that cost more than my rent. My Duras? Celeste. Had a laugh like a bell and a gaze like a scalpel. She said, prize clarity. She said, if you can explain it to my grandmother in Milwaukee, you can explain it to the world. There was also Jason, a senior strategist who turned meetings into soliloquies. He disliked me on sight. Maybe the blazer. Maybe the way I asked questions he wanted to answer first. Office ecosystems are delicate. One wrong leaf can block a lot of light. 2 days into the job, Celeste invited Rowan to a Donner's Gala at the With a Hotel. Smooze lightly? She said. Smile generously. Say less than you mean. I ironed Rowan's black dress and practiced being someone who loved mingling. I sipped seltzer with lime and made small talk about big budgets. I told a VC that apologies should be spoken in words a child could understand. He laughed like he would discovered penicillin. Halfway through a sentence about long-tail sentiment analysis, I heard my old name in an old voice. Rowan? I turned. Ben. My college almost brother-in-law. Rowan's on again. Off again, eh? He looked exactly like memory had filed him. Dimples. Gray eyes. A haircut that made him look like he still borrowed clippers from roommates. Ben, I said. And my stomach did a tightrope act. Whoa, he said. You look different. Chicago will do that, I said. He tipped his head. Still allergic to mornings. I smiled carefully. I have been experimenting with Dawn. He laughed. Coffee this week. Sure, I said. Because Rowan would have, and because saying no might look like a clue. When I told Rowan, she swore so colorfully I could see the paint. You cannot see him, she said. He will know. He barely knew you when you were with him, I said. He will know. She insisted. Ben always noticed the wrong details. Like what? I asked. Like the fact that I always tapped the table twice before I took a sip. She said. Like the way I bit the lowercase r when I wrote Rowan. Like the scar on my left knee that looks like a comma. We both have that scar, I said. That is the problem, she said. I went to coffee anyway because I had to keep the lie from sprouting branches. We met a place with hanging plants and baby pink tiles that begged to be posted. Ben asked about Portland rain and Chicago wind. He asked about my sister, and I said she was fine, which was a word I used when the truth was too sharp. You seem calmer, he said. Older, he added, like it was a compliment and a question. People change, I said. Sometimes on purpose. He studied me like a math problem that refused to stay solved. I am glad you are good, he said. You deserve it. Guilt sat down at the table and did not order anything. The weeks grew teeth. I learned the smell of the office printers and the exact angle to angle my webcams so no one could see my accounting firm's logo on a mug. I wrote statements for brands that wanted to be forgiven and scripts for COs who wanted to be understood. I got good at double booking myself and better at pretending I was not. Rona's text came at 2:06, and once at 4:17 p. While I was presenting a crisis decision tree. She said she was working on stuff. She said she had a plan. Whenever I asked for specifics, she changed the subject to shoes. Glamour can be a good smokescreen. So can... My phone lit up one night with a number I did not recognize. Harper? Clipped voice asked. This is Officer Delgado from the Vancouver Police Department. My heart climbed my throat and looked out. We are trying to reach your sister, he said. She missed a court date. For Dewey, I said. Because we were past pretending. And other matters? He said. What other matters? A pause opened like a trapdoor. Questions about financial irregularities at her previous employer. He said. Is she with you? I said. Please ask her to call us, he said. It will go better if she does. He thanked me and hung up, and I stared at the dark ceiling until lines became constellations and constellations became excuses. I called Rowan and she did not answer. I texted and she sent a photo of a beach that could have been anywhere. Wish you were here, she wrote. I called again and left a message with my accountant's voice, the one that could staple a plan to a crisis. You need to call the officer, I said. You need a lawyer who does more than co-sign your denial. She sent a heart emoji and then nothing for 2 days. In those 2 days, I built Brightwave's calendar for the quarter and ignored the calendar of my own pulse. Celeste pulled me into a glass huddle room the following Tuesday. Rowan, she said. You are leading the Evernorth launch. The room tilted. Evernorth was a Fortune 500 client with a temper. They were rolling out a sustainability pledge that would make them a target. We will do a press conference, she said. You will be our spokesperson. You speak like you pack a parachute, she added. That is a compliment. I smiled with Rowan's teeth and Riley's terror. Thank you, I said. Let us do it. At home, I wrote the speech. I wrote it with plain words and deep breaths and no lies. I imagined my mother in the audience knitting her eyebrows, my father clearing his throat when I said stakeholders. I imagined Rowan watching on a cracked phone screen somewhere a little too sunny for October. I imagined Ben recognizing a sentence that sounded like me. Then I ironed the navy blazer and told my reflection I could hold a room even when the room held me by the throat. The night before the conference. Rowan called. I am in trouble, she said without saying hello. I know, I said. The police called. It is more than the Dewey, she said. I gathered. It is not what it sounds like, she said. Never is, I said. I did not steal money, she said. I moved it around because my boss asked me to. He did not want it showing up on the books during acquisition talks. He said it was temporary. Then he fired me and said I had access to accounts I should not have had. Everything looks bad on paper. It looks worse on paper, I said. You have to come clean, I said. I can TB you on TV tomorrow, I said. You do not understand, she said. If my face is in front of 100 cameras, the Oregon story will be in front of 1,000,000 screens. That is not my problem, I said. And for once it was only partly a lie. You made it your problem, she said softly. You put my name in your mouth and now your honesty is wearing my dress. I did that for you, I said. You did that for both of us, she said. You got a stage. You got to be brave. You love being brave when it is structured. Don't pretend you did not like winning. I closed my eyes. I could hear the ocean behind her, or maybe it was a highway. Please, she said. Be me one more time, and I swear I will turn myself in next week. Next week is not a plan, I said. It is a superstition. The press conference smelled like hot lights and new carpet. Cameras faced the podium like a forest of metallic eyes. The Evernorth CEO shook my hand with a grip that said he had paid several people to teach him how to grip. Celeste squeezed my shoulder. You are ready, she said. Ben was not there. Of course. He existed in a different plotline. But I felt him anyway, like a ghost that was not dead. I stepped to the microphone and the words on my index cards fluttered. I could say them. I could wear Rowan's name and sell the room an improved version of her. I could protect her from a storm she had invited and extended. Or I could stop the game I had agreed to play and then kept playing because I was good at it. My name is Riley Harper, I said. The room inhaled in one piece. I am Rowan's twin, I said. I have been standing here with her name on my chest because she asked me to. I did it because I love her. I did it because I am good at this. I did it because I am tired of not being seen. And I'm done. Reporters shouted questions like thrown pebbles. Celeste's face went very still, then very professional. The Evernorth CEO looked at his watch like it had betrayed him. Someone at the back whispered, "Oh." I picked up my cards and walked off the stage like the room was not crumbling, even though it was. A Brightwave staffer tried to stop me in the hallway, but I kept walking until I found a bathroom and locked a stall and cried once. Quickly. The way you sneeze. Then I washed my face and went back to face the rubble. By evening, Brightwave had suspended me. 20 minutes later, a reporter called asking for comment on the twin switch scandal. I said no and yes and please in a single syllable. I turned off my phone. When I turned it on again, there was a single text from Rowan. It said, "You did not have to light the house to make tea." Then the typing dots. Then nothing. I slept the way you sleep after a surgery you scheduled too late. In the morning, emails bloomed like mushrooms after rain. Half were furious. Half were fascinated. A quarter were from people in Prague who said they admired my spine and could I talk discreetly about opportunities under my own actual legal name. I made coffee. I looked at the photo of us from senior year, the one damp from the night of the first ask. We had drawn cat whiskers on our faces with eyeliner for some senior prank. We had looked like children pretending to be animals pretending to be people. We had been so pleased with ourselves. 2 days later, Celeste called. "I should be angrier," she said. "I'm very angry. But I also believe in good people who make bad bargains. Evernorth is livid," she said. The CO said the word unprofessional so many times I started thinking it was my middle name. "You are fired," she said. And then, softer, from Brightwave, under Rowan's name. She added, "Under your name. I want to talk." "Not today? Someday. There is a difference between deceit and courage," she said. "Sometimes they share a face until the last minute." My phone rang with Oregon on the screen. It was Officer Delgado again. "We have located your sister," he said. "She was picked up on a bench warrant." "Is she?" I asked. "Chief," he said. "She will see a judge tomorrow." I thanked him, then hung up and sat on the edge of my bed, holding the kind of stillness that hums. Our parents called that night from Portland on speaker. Mom cried. Dad cleared his throat. "I am sorry I did not tell you sooner," I said. "We thought you would tell us when you needed us." Mom said, "It is hard to parent adults." Dad added, "We are still learning. We should all form a study group," I said, "because jokes are my armor and my apology. We love you both." Mom said, "Even when you make baffling choices?" Dad said, and I pictured him adjusting his glasses before saying baffling. I flew to Oregon for Rowan's arraignment. The courtroom smelled like dust and fluorescent honesty. Rowan stood in a wrinkled blouse with her chin tilted like the floor owed her an apology. When she saw me, her eyes flooded and then hardened. The judge read charges in a monotone that tried to be neutral and failed. Rowan as public defender spoke in soft specifics. There would be time to sort the mess. There would be hearings and motions and afternoons on hard benches. There would be a list of conditions. There would be a date circled on some calendar where the word consequences stopped being conceptual. We sat side by side on a long hallway bench after, our knees almost touching. "You should not have come," she said. "What were the options?" I asked. "Let gravity parent us." She snorted. "You made me a villain," she said. "You made yourself a mystery," I said. "I told the truth." "You told your truth," she said. "You told the part that looked good on camera." "My truth is Lee," she said. "It bleeds. It also heals faster when you stop picking at it," I said. She stared at the scuffed tile. "I am going to rehab," she said suddenly. "For drinking. For everything that drinks me," she added. "My lawyer says it is smart. My mother says it is time. I say I'm tired. I will help," I said. "I do not deserve it," she said. "Probably not," I said. And she smiled because honesty is our family's love language when we remember to speak it. "I am still mad at you," she said. "Get in line," I said. I stayed in Portland while she checked into a facility an hour out of town with pine trees that looked like advice. The intake nurse had the voice of someone who has heard every version of it is not that bad. Rowan did not look back when the door opened. I took air like a vitamin and drove to the coast because it was there and because water makes sense when nothing else does. I watched surfers in damp hoodies grin at cold waves and felt both very small and very included. Ben texted me a week later. "Are you okay?" He wrote. "Define okay," I replied. "Eating?" He wrote. "Sleeping?" Not lying on microphones. I told him I was 2 out of 3. He asked if I wanted to talk. I said I owed him that much and possibly more. We met on a bench near the river on a bright day that smelled like bread from the bakery behind us. He listened like it was a sport he wanted to be good at. I thought you were calmer, he said. You were? He added. You were you? I said. In a I liked you? He said, looking at the water. Like you. He corrected. But I do not like the part where people use me as a reflective surface. I know, I said. I have been a mirror too long. The thing about mirrors, he said, is they get dirty. Sometimes you have to wash them or point them at the wall. We sat without needing to be interesting. He told me about his job managing a nonprofit arts space in Pilsen and how the pipes burst last winter. I told him about the way Celeste held ideas up to light like diamonds and inspected them for flaws and fire. He told me he remembered the way Rowan tapped tables twice before drinking. I told him I remembered it too. We are not getting back together, he said without cruelty. At ask, I said without defensiveness. I wanted you to know, he said. I want us to be all right anyway. All right is my new ambition, I said. Back in Chicago, I took long walks that ended in neighborhoods I had never noticed. I cooked dinner in a way that suggested I liked my own company. I went to therapy and learned new verbs like differentiate and delegate and detach. I made a list called Things Only Riley Can Do, and it included taxes and boundary setting and remembering to floss. Celeste emailed me a month later. Can we talk? She wrote. Her office had a new plant and the same view. She poured me coffee and did not add anything to it because she remembered. We are hiring for a director of issues and insights, she said. Under your name. No costumes. The board thinks I am reckless. She added. I think I am right. It is not charity, she said. It is recognition. You are good, she said. You are yourself, she added. Finally, I exhaled a month-held breath. I would like to interview properly, I said. She grinned. Of course you would, she said. Bring your over-preparation. Wear whatever you want. The interview felt like walking into a room I had already furnished with my own taste. I talked about trust like it was a currency we needed to earn and spend and never counterfeit. I talked about how truth told late still beats a lie told early. I talked about why simplicity is hard labor and worth the sweat. Celeste smiled like a teacher whose student had finally stopped underlining everything. They offered me the role the next day. I said yes with a clear voice and no aliases. Rowan wrote letters from rehab on yellow legal pads with messy hearts in the margins. She wrote about group sessions where people told the truth so hard it echoed. She wrote about a counselor named Tam who said guilt is glue and shame is sand. She wrote about missing coffee and learning to like tea. She wrote about the word amends and how it tasted like medicine and honey. I wrote back about Chicago mornings and the bus driver who told jokes. I wrote about Celeste and how leadership sometimes means saying we when you mean I and sometimes means saying I when you used to hide behind we. I wrote about Ben's dog that I had met once by accident and how it leaned on my shin like a decision. I did not write about how relieved I felt to have only one inbox. She knew. Twins know what you do not say because it sounds loud. Our parents visited her on Sundays and sent me updates that sounded like weather reports. Today she was bright with isolated showers. Mom texted. Barometric pressure rising. Dad added. I flew out for family day and sat in a circle while a facilitator asked for honesty and spoonfuls. Not buckets. Rowan apologized without turning it into a performance. I forgave her without turning it into a speech. We cried a little and laughed a little and drew a crude map of how to do better with a pen that kept skipping. On the day she graduated from the program, we drove to a diner and ordered pancakes like we used to after school, when everything felt solvable with syrup. She wore a bracelet the color of sunrise and breathed like she had found a new hobby. I got it, she said, trying to make it sound casual. At a community arts center. Front desk? She added. Answering phones? Being nice? Getting paid? Not stealing? She finished, and we both smiled. I am proud of you, I said. I want to be proud of me, she said. That is the project. The fraud case took most of a year to unwind. Her lawyer turned out to be excellent and patient and allergic to jargon. Rowan pled to a lesser charge that sounded like a machine error and involved restitution and community service. She took buses to volunteer shifts and learned how to fix a broken kiln and resolve disputes about paintbrushes. She paid back what the court said she owed and a little extra because sometimes repairs require more than the invoice. The doy became a chip in a mosaic instead of the whole tile. We started switching lives in better ways. I mailed her my favorite mystery novels with notes in the margins. She mailed me a playlist called Riley Does Not Have to Be Perfect to Be Loved. We FaceTimed during grocery runs and compared apples. When she visited Chicago, she slept on my couch and did not borrow my name. We went to a street festival and danced badly and laughed like fools, and no one recognized us as anyone but ourselves. We passed the hotel and waved ironically. We went inside and ordered seltzers with lime. We toasted to the version of us that made it out of the labyrinth. Celeste thrived in arguments with executives who mistook noise for nuance. I built a team that nerded out about integrity and sentence rhythm. We launched campaigns that told the truth about waiting and breaking and fixing. We wrote statements that said we are sorry without if or but. Jason left for a startup with a logo that looked like an app that reminded you to drink water. He sent a link in DM that said no hard feelings. I sent back a thumbs up and meant it. One fall afternoon, Ben came to a talk I gave about crisis communications at a public library with a big skylight. We hugged like people who had not betrayed each other but had once stood too close to a breach. He asked about Rowan and I said she was a work in progress with good lighting. After the talk, we walked 2 blocks and found a bakery and split a croissant we did not need. We were not a romance. We were not an almost. We were a sentence that used to be a question mark and was now a period with a friendly curve. On the anniversary of the press conference, I pulled out the navy blazer and looked at it the way you look at a city you moved away from. I tried it on and it fit differently. I was different. I wore it to work because memories can be heavy or they can be fabric. Celeste saw me and said, "Good look," I said. "It has history." She said, "So do you." We smiled like people who had walked through a storm together and dried off separately. Rowan called that night from her tiny apartment with succulents she was not killing. "I almost introduced myself as you today," she said, laughing. Old habits. At the Art Center, a donor asked me if I was the Riley from the news. I said, she said, proud. I said I am Rowan and I can help you check in. How did it feel? I asked. Like not borrowing a dress and still loving the mirror. She said, sometimes I wish we could start over. She added, be babies with matching hats and no choices. We would still get here, I said. Because we are us. She grew quiet and then said, thank you? For what? For telling the truth when I would not, she said. For taking off the costume on a stage. For not letting me stay small. I did not do it perfectly, I said. You did not have to, she said. You just had to do it. We ended the call with plans. Thanksgiving in Portland. Christmas in Chicago. A summer trip to the coast where the water insists you pay attention. I washed the blender and wiped the counter and thought about coins. Heads and tails and edges. How sometimes you stop flipping and decide to be currency. How sometimes you stop rolling and buy your own name back. A week. I spoke to a room of grad students about ethics. I told them we were all susceptible to stories that make us bigger than our honesty can carry. I told them that a crisis will always offer you the smallest door labeled lie. I told them to look for the other door labeled harder way out. I told them the other door leads to air. A hand went up in the back. Would you do it again? The student asked. Pretend to be your sister. I would help her, I said. I would not wear her name. Not even to save her. Especially not to save her, I said. Because sometimes saving someone means refusing to go undercover with them. Sometimes it means standing at the edge of the mess and saying your real name out loud. When I left, the sky over the river was lemon and lavender. The wind pushed my hair into my face and I let it. I passed a woman who could have been Rowan if the light squinted. She stepped off the curb and then back again when a bike flashed past. We smiled at each other like secret keepers with nothing left to hide. My phone pinned. A text from Rowan. A photo of a painted mural at her center that said, in big looping letters, begin anywhere. I texted back a photo of the river. I wrote, begin here. The next time I visited Portland, we drove out to our old high school and parked by the track. The bleachers were smaller than I remembered and the sky wider. We walked the lanes with our hands deep in our jacket pockets. We talked about teenagers who look like adults and adults who look like excuses. We sat on the 50-yard line and ate sandwiches and watched a hawk draw geometry above us. You know, Rowan said. I used to think you were the cautious one. I used to think you were the brave one, I said. We were both right and both wrong, she said. Turns out I am brave at starting and you are brave at staying. Turns out I am brave at telling and you are brave at hearing, I said. The hawk folded and fell and rose again. A whistle blew from somewhere. Janitor pushed a mop bucket toward a door. Time kept happening. On the flight home, a woman in the middle seat asked if I was traveling for business or pleasure. I said both. I thought about a year that tasted like metal and then like oranges. I thought about the stage and the bathroom and the bench and the diner and then the courtroom and the rehab front desk and the library skylight. I thought about a blazer that used to feel like armor and now felt like fabric. I thought about doors and names and the way you can love someone without lending them your spine. I closed my eyes and slept for the first time on a plane since I was a child. When I woke, the city grid lit up like a logic puzzle I wanted to solve. The cab driver asked which way I liked to go and I said the way with the least traffic and the most lights. At home, I put my suitcase by the door and watered a plant I had kept alive for 6 months. I sat at my kitchen table and opened a blank document. The top, I typed the mirror game is over. Under it, I typed the work continues. Then I closed the laptop and made a grilled cheese that would have disappointed any foodie and pleased any child. I ate it standing up. I texted Rowan a photo of the golden edges. She sent back a photo of her tea mug and a caption that said, "Cheers, sister." We were not the same. We were not interchangeable. We were not halves. We were whole. We were learning to stand side by side without trading faces. We were learning to call each other by name and mean it. We were learning to begin anywhere. And often, we began with the truth.